What's up, everybody? Hope the 93, or aka Malcolm, part of the Stephen Malcolm Show. I know that we've been on a long hiatus. It's been since, I believe, March 27th. But that doesn't change the fact that we're here now. We're back. Because don't forget, it's not just me. It's also my partner in crime, Steve. And it's funny that, it's episode 9, and it's the 9th month of the year. And for all those Whovians out there that believe Doctor Who season/series 9 started tonight too. So it's a night of nines, if you will. A night of nines. A night of nines. On today's show, we will be talking about Bill Finger finally getting his credit. We'll be talking about the Stephen and Mel Twitter controversy. We'll also be talking about one of the most popular video games, right now, Until Dawn. We'll also be talking about Home Alone returning to theaters for its 25th anniversary, and me and Steve will also be giving our predictions on WWE's upcoming pay-per-view, Night of Champions. And before, Steve joins in, as always, the first segment is always, today in history. Oh, hold on, forgot. Watch Steve Malcolm Show. The side effects will include surgically removed smiles and constant laughter. Constant laughter. But in today's history, it's September 9th of 1893, before most of us was even born, even our parents were even born. In 1893, New Zealand became the first country to allow women to vote. So congratulations to those New Zealand, to the Kiwi. And also, we have a couple of birthdays today as well. That's also part of the show. I'd like to say happy birthday to Jimmy Fallon, who turned 41. Still can't believe that Jimmy Fallon's in his 40s. And also, happy birthday to the legendary Jeremy Irons, who turned 67 years old. Yep, 67 years old. And Jeremy Irons, he's been around for a long time. Jeremy Irons, the first time I ever saw him was in Die Hard with a Vengeance. That's a good Die Hard movie. I recommend it. And I still feel that he could make for a good Mr. Sinister if there ever was to cast Mr. Sinister in an X-Men movie. So that I was, I was looking up things that happened today in history, and some of the stuff was sad. But the whole thing with New Zealand being the first country to grant all women the right to vote, was pretty optimistic than the other stuff that happened on September 9th in history. One was a Mexico earthquake. So, really, it's kind of really sad, very on the negative note. But yeah, it's pretty unfortunate that, while I wait for Steve to come on in, speak it up. Hold up, guys.
Hello, everyone. Oh, for once I'm not actually late, guys. For once I actually managed to make it into the video rather quickly.
Sorry about that, guys. Somebody was at the door, and it was not Michael Myers. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. If Michael Myers was to come, I would give him s'mores. Say, hey, But you want some s'mores. And there he is. It's Steve, who had some business to take care of with the John.
No, I like I said, I took care of all that like two or three, other times before this. I don't know what's really been going on, but let's just say that I have some Pepto right near me. I don't know what I ate, but been having a little bit of like, a hurt tummy, shall we say. And Malcolm's sitting there, Malcolm was sitting there talking to me, guys, and I had to warn him that the next time that I went, the CDC would have to be called, and we'd have to probably be staying at a motel for the night. So I'm kind of sitting here with some Pepto tablets and just sitting here actually praying, even though I'm not a very religious person. So if you hear me like at one point actually shriek and run off camera, um, let's just say I'll be putting on my brown pants and not in a very flattering way.
Is that cotton candy in the background?
Oh no! It's the little cat bed that the cats don't even use that apparently is now flattened.
I'm thinking that cotton candy just sitting there.
I know it does look like a giant wad of like pink cotton candy.
Yeah. How's it going, Steve?
Oh, to give you the short version, it's been very, very rough since we last, of course, had our episode, and a lot of ups and downs, not just with writing, but just like a lot of stuff personally that's been not quite so fun to deal with, shall we say. So I'm hoping I'm hoping things will actually get better. I didn't I finally decided for once in my life that actually going to the doctors was a good idea. I'm not going to get too much into it, guys. But those that know me personally and actually talk to me, aside from Malcolm and Chris and my buddy Mr. Lone Wolf, 97, and the Great Southern Treadkill, Kyle and James, respectfully, they know what's been going on behind the scenes with me. But I will tell you guys, it's not anything to necessarily completely worry about, but there's a lot of like personal issues that I've been dealing with for the last couple of months that have kind of led me to finally go see a doctor, and I'm hoping. And so far, the doctor's visit is good. I can at least tell you guys, and it's hopefully some of you won't get too concerned, but I will have to have some blood work done this Tuesday since I'm on my 1 week vacation from work. So I'm looking forward tomorrow to not only being able to sleep in like I always do on Sundays, but I'm definitely looking forward to, relaxing and just kind of decompressing. It's been very stressful, not only at work, but it's just been stressful on the writing front. And there's been a lot of things going on that, like I said, I won't get into, but that Malcolm knows that's been going on behind the scenes that has been, not only very agitating, but very upsetting for me personally.
Yeah, I just hope that Kyle is not too upset since you botched his name. Called him 97. Or as Victor would say, Mr. Longworth 96. So,
Oh, it's 96, not 97. See, I thought it was 97.
yeah, he was born 1996. And before getting to this episode's agenda, I had I thought I might share this because I thought I was laughing so hard when I was in school the other day that I was on the floor. I was just thinking about it. Uh, because one day in the week when we was leaving, me and my friends, it was me, my friends Arness, Raph, and Dex, and we're walking to the nearest the nearest 7-Eleven because there's a 7-Eleven right next to my school. It's basically like our cafeteria, if you will. And we're walking, and then we're about to go inside. Here comes Dex. You guys ever ate crayons? I'm like, I'm like,
Wait a minute, what?
I'm like, I'm like, I just started like,
Why
I
does that
got
remind me of the story that I'm gonna have to tell right after yours? The one that had you, Kyle, and everybody else laughing, and is still the talk of last week or so.
yeah. I told my friends about the Larry story, and they found that
Yeah,
too
yeah.
good
We'll
to be
we'll get
true.
into Larry from Coca-Cola in a second, because I'm sure a lot of our viewers who have been waiting, I'm sure, for a whole bunch of like messed up or like stupid work stories from me, and I'll more than make up for it in this episode, guys, because some of them, especially the one in particular that me and Malcolm are referencing, I truly, it will astound you because you'll think that it's actually made up, and the sad part is it's not. But anyway, what were you saying, Malcolm, about crayons?
Yeah, Dex just out of nowhere just randomly asks us, "You guys know? No, you guys know how crayons taste like?" There we go. You know how crayons taste like? I'm like, why, why would why would we know how crayons? Because babies eat crayons. We're like, okay, what's that gotta do with anything? Like, we look like babies. I was like, so would you want to taste some non-toxic sticks? And then yesterday, then the next day, which was yesterday, or actually, which was Thursday, um, I brought it back up and I started laughing so hard about it that I was on the floor because I'm thinking, yeah, this is the same guy who asks how do crayons taste like, as if he wanted to eat crayons. I was like, what you thought crayons? What you thought Crayola was? Colorful Kit Kats? I'm like, what's the matter with you? Uh, I don't understand why did Dex just ask that. And then when he was talking trash while we was playing Super Smash Brothers, uh, I was like, Dex, I don't know. You talk so much. I don't know how you don't get picked up on garbage day. He was like, oh, wait, what? And then he's like, yeah, how about you give me a fruit stick? I'm like, oh, then I'd be throwing it in the trash then. He's like, look, I don't have no comeback for that. Like, exactly. Someone asked me
You know
for
what
you.
you should have said to him? You should have done the Perry Saturn thing and said, yeah, and don't forget, the blue ones are for fiber.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm like, what is that? Perry Saturn. This is Perry Saturn all over again. I will never understand why Dex just out of the blue just asks us, you guys know how crayons taste like? Like, no. Weird.
That's just as bad as this story. And of course, I have to tell at least the Larry story, even if it's already been told. Still, it makes Malcolm and everybody else laugh, guys, because recently we have two Coke vendors. One is Sean and the other is Larry. Black guy and white guy. Larry's the older of the two, and he's a little bit southern. I would say probably like from the Carolinas. Flair country, quote unquote, and I swear, when I first met Larry, I thought, he's one of those people that, he intentionally acts dumb just to get attention. Like, those people that I'm talking about, guys. And at first I thought, okay, this is all an act because clearly I wear a name tag. It says Steven, and most people call me Steve. This guy, even though he looked at my name tag, the only time that he got my name right was Stefan. I have been called, and I've told Malcolm and Kyle this. He has called me William, George, Georgette, Stefan, which is the closest that he's ever gotten to my name. Anne, I don't know how he got Anne out of there. Henrietta, when I used to wear my straw hat, which I'm not allowed to, anymore. Apparently, I'm being too loud. Um, try to try to keep it at a decent volume. But when I had my straw hat, he called me Indiana Jones. He frickin' what else did he call me? I think he called me Lester one time. I think Winston was another one. Like he would call me every name but my own name. And what made this worse was, this is a guy who apparently is as I found out, is Protestant. Which apparently he does not believe in contraception, or rather, his wife doesn't. So he's got 10 daughters, allegedly. Um, and so we're just sitting there. We're sitting in the cafe because sometimes on Fridays, him and Sean eat together. As most coworkers do. So they're sitting across from me because, like, right where our cafe is, because we have a cafe in our workplace, guys, and so I'm right here. Like, just imagine if, like, the furthest table on the right. So, palm up like this is basically where I'm sitting. Larry and Sean are like right here. They're facing, towards me on the left side of the cafe if you were looking from straight in there. So it's like they're on the far left, I'm on the far right, and we're just sitting there talking. And I had made the joke because we had actually had a crow the day before actually come into our workplace. Like, just had a crow walk all the way from the outside, walk around me, go inside, sat on one of our mobile, handicap carts. And I felt really bad, as did my mother, because it was a really rainy day, and I'm pretty sure this crow was wounded, or it was, sick and dying, and it was just looking for a place to get out of the rain. But it led to probably still the most confusing and most messed up thing ever that still had Malcolm laughing as well, which is a lady said, and I quote to me, guys, "Oh, don't touch that crow. They fly all the way from Egypt and you could get West Nile." To which I still am perplexed by that. Like, how do crows, number one, fly all the way from Egypt across the sea, and how could I get in? I have more of a chance of getting West Nile from mosquitoes than I do freaking touching a crow. And to make this worse, guys, I bring that up as a joke, and of course Sean's laughing, and Larry says, and I quote, he goes, "Hey, isn't Egypt in Europe?" And I looked at him and I was like, "No, Larry," I said, it's in Africa. It's in the top part of Africa." And he goes, "No, it's not." And I said, "Larry, it's in the top part of Africa." I said, "Get a map." And he's like, "But there have never been any black Egyptians." And me and Sean are just sitting there like, "Oh my God." So then, guys, Sean pulls out his phone, gets on Google Maps, and is like, Larry, look at this thing." And Larry looks at it, and Larry said, with not only stunned, guys, but he said with complete deadpan seriousness, he's like, "When the hell did they move it?"
Ah.
That's when me, Sean, and our grocery manager Charlie just started losing it. And Charlie, and of course Charlie, being the blunt person that he is, he just looked in. He was like, "What an effing moron!" He goes, "When did they move it?" He goes, "How the f do you move a goddamn country?"
Oh, I don't. Well, I don't know. They have to probably take some act of God, but not nobody told Larry that.
No, and the worst part is that now, as a joke, we're like trying to actually create a world map and like a globe for Larry to take, so that way he knows, and just put like a big X where Africa is. And just put, yeah, there's Egypt, and it's just that literally had everybody perplexed and laughing. They're like, how? It's like, did Larry take geography when he was in school? Did this guy even have an education? Because it's kind of scary that this guy works in a big position in Coca-Cola, like head vendor, has 10 kids, and the man has the education of a third grader. Because that's kind of scary in in and of itself, in a prospect. But that's not nearly as bad.
I
But that's
said
not
that.
nearly as
Oh man, I remember what I said. I said he probably social, but he doesn't have the studies.
yeah, yeah. Which Sean, when I told him that, he actually laughed at that. He goes, "I like that." He goes, "I'm gonna have to tell Larry that." But I mean, even Larry's boss, like his boss, like Sean told her, like what he did, and his boss is just like, "Are you serious?" She goes, "No, he did not actually say that." And I especially love Malcolm's reaction all this week and even last week. He goes, "Malcolm still cannot believe, and I can't say that I blame Malcolm, that Larry as a human being can honestly be that dumb to not know where Egypt is on a geography map."
Yeah, I mean, like, if he would have said that it's Egypt, it's like its own, like it's not part of Africa. Like, he thought it was a separate country. Then, oh, I'd maybe given the benefit of the doubt, even though Egypt is a country within Africa because Africa is a continent. But this guy said that Egypt is in Europe. Of all,
No, not only that, but apparently he even specified that he thought it was somewhere between Hungary and Germany.
oh, so
That
you left
that
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 part
that,
out.
that, that just made it worse.
You left that part out. That's even worse.
No, I ended up actually having that clarified by Sean after I had left. Because
Oh,
apparently Larry's like, yeah, I thought it was somewhere between Hungary and Germany. And when Sean told me that, I was like, why? Why are you telling me this? I said, you're making this worse, Sean. It's like
no.
this truly, and then it's not to be outdone by, I don't even know. I'm pretty sure on the show I haven't talked about apparently the two nutsos, the Jehovah's Witness and the fruit guy apparently, and also apparently at work I was reminded of the baby oil guy because we were all like joking about like past like customers or people that were coming into the store, like all these difficult customers, all these crazy people, from a fruit guy who apparently thinks that fruit are like Vietnam POWs and thinks everybody around him is an alien trying to probe him like it's the movie They Live. Especially the fact that this guy got arrested. And apparently when he got arrested, he had assaulted the police officer, and as he's being handcuffed, pepper sprayed, tasered, whatever, he screamed, and I quote, and somebody actually quoted this because they were there when he actually said this. He said, "You'll never take me to the mothership." And I was like, why have I not met this guy? And somebody's like, you don't want to meet him. I'm like, I don't think that you understand. I attract weird people. And sometimes, as scary as it is, it's hilarious to meet him. And especially what was bad about that was somebody actually walked right by him. He's talking to the apples and oranges guys, literally
Oh,
saying, "Don't worry, guys, I'll find a way to free you," or something like that. I'm like,
oh no,
why have I not
I
met
won't
this
let them
guy?
take you away.
No, and then there's the Jehovah's Witness who apparently came back not only 3 times, but then apparently now the fourth time that he's come here, he apparently should have been charged with destruction of property because he was carving crosses into the brick and mortar of our pillars. And the reason why he was doing this was he was trying to cast wards against evil spirits. God, I don't know what happened to my workplace, guys, but apparently it used to be on the grounds of an old insane asylum, I'm convinced, and that the inmates are coming back 20 to 30 years later.
Oh man,
Because,
straight out of a horror movie with, oh yeah, this house was built underneath up on top of a old,
but, and even though it's hilarious, I have to at least, I'm not gonna, well, to protect his, actually, protect his name or do like the whole protection of the innocence thing because I don't want this person um, knowing that I'm necessarily referring to them, even though they probably might end up finding out anyway. But we'll call him Jared. We'll call him Jared. But basically, Jared, one of the
of
guys that I work with,
all
and this,
names, Jared. After what's going on with Jared from Subway.
well, the guy, to be fair, kind of looks like he could have been related to Jared, but that's beside the point. No, but freaking, we'll call it. Even though it has nothing to do, guys. Honestly, with Jared from Subway, I'm just picking Jared just as like the first name out of my head. But basically, one of the guys that I work with, Jared, his cover name, walked up to Sean. our Coke vendor, because Sean, he works part time at our store as one of our stock guys and tag people now apparently. Just doing whatever he can to provide for his 10-year-old son and himself, and being a good father. This guy walks up to him, and of course Jared is a little bit socially awkward. He goes into these deep philosophical like rants that oftentimes kind of make you believe that he's one of those tinfoil hat people, as I call them. Those people that have like weird theories, conspiracy theories, just say a lot of weird crap, like, their ancestors are like, part Navajo and like, dark elf or something like that. Well, Jared apparently decided to say, oh yeah, 2 years ago I was African American, but then pixie dust fell out of the sky and bleached me white. Let's examine that, shall we? But better yet, let me explain the full conundrum of this guy's entire logic.
It sounds
He
like
then
Uncle Ruckus from
oh
Boondoggle.
no, no. Oh no, no. Even worse was that apparently he also said, "Oh, I can't look at people or objects for too long because I can start fires with my mind." That
What
that's
is this? Fire
stereotypical crazy
starter with
person.
Drew Barrymore? Hmm.
Yeah, apparently he has Carrie style pyrokinetic abilities. Okay, moving on from that. The last part is the part that really that cemented that something's wrong with this guy, but also the fact that, well, let's be honest, it's just straight hilarious. This guy is bald. He shaves his head bald, and the reason that he apparently said that he did this was because he is able to predict, when storms, disasters, and bad weather are able to happen. And he said that apparently, and I quote, if Elvis Presley is playing in the sky, that means that there is going to be super terrible storms. If country music is playing in the sky, it's going to be a great day. Everything's going to be all right. Why, oh, why, as I've always said, guys, why do I attract these people? Why do I surround myself with these people and not even on purpose?
Well, didn't you just say you
Like,
found out that your place is like the capital of weed?
you know, no, apparently, like I said, apparently I believe that that my store is built on the grounds of an old insane and on an old insane asylum, and the inmates are coming back 20, 30 years later. But I also believe, honestly and truly, that it's also the portal to the Twilight Zone. I am convinced of that. I am convinced of this, Malcolm, because there's things that should not be happening, especially listening to that one lady as she was coming into the store one day, just random customer on the phone. I don't know who she was talking to. I'm presuming it was her daughter. Just out of the blue, as I'm walking towards the parking lot, I have no problem, letting you, like, walk around a day spa by yourself. It's like, what? Walk around a day spa by yourself? And she said it with such like urgency, concern, and like relief, which was really confusing because it's like there was conflicting emotions there, Malcolm. You know,
Uh-huh.
or or the woman as I'm walking by her, ratchety looking woman, just like, and it's like, yeah, I told him that he needs to quit letting him, boo boo all over the carpet. You know, it's like he never should have got that dog or something like that. Like I was far away, so I didn't hear the rest of it. But it's just like what is going on? To then like apparently this week I had to help an elderly guy, and I feel bad for the elderly because the elderly, they can't help their bowel movements as they get older, but. There's a part of me that even though I was nice to that old guy, and even though he was really appreciative and trying to help, clean up after himself as best he could, I just, I really did not want my my work day, especially since I clean the bathrooms on a daily basis at my store. I really didn't want to start my day off first thing going to clean the bathrooms and then finding out that an old dude needed me to dispose of his dirty, completely fudged in underwear. It's like that's not a good way, guys, to start your work week. It
Yeah,
really isn't.
yeah, talk about a shitty morning.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. But it did not pale in comparison to that old lady, and that old lady better be glad that she actually, skedaddled out of there, and I didn't know who she was because all else, as I keep describing to people, man, I walked into that stall in the women's bathroom. It was like the movie Daddy Daycare, only except you literally saw what Eddie Murphy saw. Just wall to wall on the stalls, on the door. I'm literally looking at this and I'm like, was this woman summoning Cthulhu? Because it looked like there was a ritual, Malcolm, that had happened there. I was like, what? I'm like, what is going on at my store that the old people just lose their bowels and hit everything but the toilet water? I'm,
Well,
I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, oh my god. It's like old people are now reverting back to the toddler stage before they get potty trained.
well,
What is this?
oh well, what the? Oh, it is true. Oh shoot, they did replace Kate Upton with Mariah Carey for those Game of War commercials. I was actually enjoying those Kate Upton commercials, or as I call her, the Power Girl version of Kayla, of our good friend Kayla.
I can
Well,
surprisingly see. Yeah. Anyway, other than the mishaps at my
yeah.
workplace and
Wait a minute. Oh, we got our first. It's Big Rick. Big Rick says, "What's up, guys? Let the insanity begin." Well, hopefully it's not too insane, Rick. But I bet you, if you were in that stool and you saw all that crap, you probably figured that some insane stuff is going on too. And what the hell?
no, I mean, like, I'm not even joking. My mother literally looked at me, as did our HR manager and everybody else. Everybody's been saying this week, they're like, yo, I feel bad for you. And the worst part is, I feel bad for, one of our deli ladies because she was in the stall with that woman who actually did all that, Malcolm, and she literally said, and I quote, she goes, I tried to hold my, she goes, I held my breath for as long as I could, but I just had to, like stuff a whole bunch of toilet paper and get out of there, regardless if I had to pee or, poop myself. She goes, the
Oh,
smell was so ratchet. I'm not even joking. Like one of our other deli ladies, her name is Tina. She walked in there. She walked out of there. She walked out of there in a second, and she goes, "I don't know what this woman did." And she sounded like Liam Neeson when he's doing the phone scene in Taken. She goes, "I don't know who that woman is. I don't know what she ate." She goes, "But the dairy farm did not smell as bad as this." And I was like, okay, number one, why are you referencing a dairy farm? But I mean, I'm not even joking, Malcolm. It's that kind of smell that even if you crack the door and you're on the other side of the store, you still smell it. Like it was that bad. Like I'm literally, you'd have thought that this lady, had let off the biggest, stink bomb that had ever existed in the entire history of humanity. I walked in there, everybody's like, "Man, you need a hazmat suit. It's like you need a mask, Steve. You need something. How did you go in there and clean all that up and not gag?" I said, well, there's a couple of things that you need to know about me that I'm not going to tell you all that much about. I said, but let me reiterate the most basic fact that I tell anybody when they ask me how I can clean the bathrooms and deal with, crap and all that stuff. I'm like, you're talking to a guy who at 9, 10, possibly 11 years old had bathed his clothes in sewage water and then walked all the way back home Trust me, you're dealing with somebody that is desensitized to the most disgusting situations that have ever existed on this planet. There is very few things that will really shock or disgust me when it comes to bodily functions, body fluids, all kinds of matter of stuff. It's like I'm desensitized to that, and I'm pretty much immune to that stuff. It doesn't mean that it doesn't gross me out, but I learned to cope with it simply because it's like I've done more disgusting things. I'm just one of those people.
Well, 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 that might be true. I think it's about time to finally get down to the show's agenda. Because speaking of those kind of people, we're going to be talking about a special kind of person. And then, yes, this pen came out of nowhere. A special kind of person, and his name is Bill Finger. And for those of you that don't know who Bill Finger is, he is one of the creators of the legendary and adored and inspired characters known as Batman. The reason why Bill Finger is being brought up because I found out through my brother, the Mount Vernon kid, aka Chris, that Bill Finger, which has been long overdue. Bill Finger will finally get his credit for being co-creator of Batman. Now, for those of you that probably said, well, what do you mean? Well, for the longest time, if you've ever seen a Batman film or a Batman cartoon or a Batman animated movie, every time it's the credits, the first name that pops up, DC, character created by Bob Kane. And I was first introduced to this by, I think when me and Chris went to go see Batman Begins, and based from the Nolan series on, every time the movie ended, and the Nolan series music, dun 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 dun, and when they show the credit comes Chris, every time they show back to Bob Kane, the name Chris always go like this. He just have that face like, man, I remember one time, look at this shit. I'm like, so I'm thinking, wait, what's the problem? And then Chris was the one that informed me that it's not supposed to say just Bob Kane. It's supposed to be Bill Finger and Bob Kane. So basically, and I remember Chris telling me that Bob Kane, went on record to say that Bill Finger, he does deserve his credit. And I think he tried to sign something where he would finally get his credit. I don't know if it finally passed through. That's why it's happened. But basically, the whole point is that I think starting with this season of Gotham, I don't watch Gotham, but
From what I saw, it's supposed to be Gotham and Batman versus Superman are going to be like the trend starters for, Bill Finger getting his credit. And that's
exactly.
something that I didn't even know about until like a couple of years ago. And it's really kind of sad, but it's also kind of true as I've been learning, being somebody who's, in his first year of, trying to break into writing comic books. That's something that I found out is actually sometimes sad but true, a commonplace, which is a lot of times, sometimes co-creators get screwed out of there, and that's the case of what happened with Bill Finger. Bill Finger actually was the one that fully created Batman, came up with the concept, came up with the designs and everything, but Bob Kane just was a little bit more legally savvy, and basically that's why Bob Kane's name, guys, was on there for so long, was because Bob Kane registered the character as a trademark for himself, while Bill Finger basically was left broke, penniless, and basically just, died without ever seeing a dime. And it wasn't until the end of his life when I guess he wanted to choose to repent that Bob Kane was like, it's like Bill actually does deserve the credit. And I think towards the end, Bob Kane kind of realized years later that, it's one of those cases where You know, it's just like with Stan Lee. You know, a lot of people think that Stan Lee takes credit for building the entire Marvel universe, but Stan's gone on record and said no, it was Steve Ditko, it was Jack Kirby, it was. He goes, I came up with the ideas. He goes, but they came up with the art, and that's always something that I respect, Stan greatly for, is that Stan gave credit where credit's due, whereas, Bob Kane, Bob Kane just basically, he wanted the grit, the glitz and glamour, but I think once that started to wear off and once the real story started coming out and people started to see how much of a POS, Bob was, I think that's when Bob Kane's like, it's one of those cases where not only when you're caught in a lie, Malcolm, but I think also when you start to get a little bit older and you start to think back on your life, especially a lot of the regrets and mistakes that you made. I think that's what happened to Bob Kane. He finally realized that, it's like, oh, shoot, it's like I basically ruined, this guy's life. And the same, and there's been a lot of reports where, yeah, Bob Kane even tried to register the name of the Joker to himself. So Jerry Robinson, the guy who created the Joker, I think he even, not for a while, didn't even get to see a dime for the Joker either. So it's like Bob Kane basically was trying to legally take credit for the entire Batman universe, Malcolm. And it's like you really put that in perspective, and you're like, that's kind of a dick move on Bob Kane's part.
Oh wait, hold up. Big Rick got two more comments, basically referring to the story of basically the bathroom story. This story proves that I feel better about going to the public toilets in Australia. And I'm happy. I'm so happy that Bill Finger gets his proper credit. Yeah, it's like, and all the articles are saying that, he finally receives his screen credit because it's not like, fans of Batman or fans of just comics in general never gave him his credit. They knew the truth. It's just that when it came to screen credit, yeah, you would never see Bill Finger's name. It was just Bob Kane, Bob Kane, Bob Kane, Bob Kane, Bob Kane, Bob Kane, to the point where Chris, when I went to go see Dark Knight Rises, before even Bob Kane's name came up, Chris was like, watch this shit. Dun, dun. Look at that, Chris. Look at that. So it's good that, finally, Bill Finger is going to get his screen recognition that he's rightfully deserves. And why they just have me pause, just smile like DDP? That was kind of weird. uh, and still sticking with DC or sticking with screen, DC, whether on big screen or small screen. This past week, for those of this past week, for those of you that don't know, one of the biggest, one of the biggest news came out of Texas, where hold up, make sure I get his name right. I don't want to mess up his name.
I think it was Irvin. I want to say, I think it was like Irving Ahmed Muhammad. I think is how you pronounce his name. I know it was at least like Irvin, and I think Muhammad was his last name.
Wait, hold up. There we go. Right. Okay. Oh, Ahmed Mohammed. Oh, that was pretty simple. Like Ahmed Johnson. Yeah. Ahmed Mohammed, a 14-year-old ninth grader, was arrested for bringing a homemade clock that he brought in to impress his teacher. Okay, he's an engineer. He's gonna bring in the impress one of his teachers. He got arrested for it because when he was in his English class, he had it in a briefcase, and it started to beep. And and quite logically, once again, I don't blame the students or so or the teacher for being a little bit on the cautious side. Yeah, you hear a beep inside of a briefcase. Yeah, you would be pretty concerned. But he got arrested for it. The cops said that he got arrested for a fake bomb. And so Stephen Amell, Arrow star Stephen Amell, You know, basically he said he broke his code or whatever of talking about, you know, current events. I think he went on a hiatus on Twitter. I'm not on Twitter, you know, I don't follow Stephen Amell on Twitter, but I guess he had this code where he did not tweet about current events, but he felt the need this one, you know, was the exception to the rule. And he basically said, you know, that basically two wrongs don't make a right. Basically, profiling, racially profiling Ahmed Muhammad is just as bad as profiling Texans as, you know, racist, because a lot of people, you know, Texas is a southern state, one of the big southern states, and you know, I guess besides being racist, the other stereotype of Texans is they're pretty dumb, you know. So basically, Stephen Amell basically you know, played the neutral side, and in this case, being neutral was like the ultimate sin. Um, he got flack for it, and then I think a day later or a couple hours later, you know, he started like making a list of, you know, defending not only Muhammad, defending Texas, because I believe he said his wife is from Texas, and you know her family are good people, and they defended himself. Uh, but so, but before I get into probably what, okay, I can understand, because even um, a lot of people that we know, um, Victor, who you know, Ziploc Gory, even brought up he had a conversation on Facebook with Brandon Hex. Um, and but before I get into that, you know, Stephen Amell basically played the neutral route, played the neutral card. That I didn't see what was the big deal. People getting offended about that, and it just goes to show you that it seems like in this time of day, you know what they call the SJWs, the social justice warriors. It seems like if you don't fully agree with them, you know they'll like berate you for being like a horrible person at sometimes. And the only thing Stephen Amell did was just play the neutral card, just saying like don't stereotype Muhammad for being Muslim, and don't stereotype Texans, you know, thinking that all of them are racist. So that wasn't so. I don't see anything wrong with Stephen Amell's, you know, with that tweet he had. Now I do feel that the tweet that what Victor was talking about, that probably, yeah, he probably should have left out, and he probably should have left out was when he said at the end of his listing of, you know, defenses, and you know, and he after he apologized, you know, he went to go say um that, you know, I don't apologize and I will not delete my comment. That that's really no problem. But when he went to go say that if you're outraged by an opinion, it's because you're bored. Now that's where I was like, you know, okay, see, you probably should have left that part out, because that can be said for a lot. Like, there's been plenty of I mean, opinions in life that have started a lot of stuff. You know, if you look at, you know, people on the past that try to take over, they had a strong opinion and it wasn't good. So I think there Mel should have just left out, because yeah, not every opinion. Just because you have an opinion, that doesn't mean, you know, what you say doesn't. I mean, it doesn't give people the right to call you out on it. But besides that, just him playing a neutral card, I didn't see any wrong in that. I didn't. I just didn't. And you know, then he decided to take a leave, basically a leave of absence from Facebook. And I don't think that it was necessary, but hey, it's his choice. I know I know people. Some people are criticizing him for doing that. You know, they feel that that reinforces, you know, the issue. And I'm just like, uh, it's like wow.
You know, and a lot of people, I think what really kind of, I mean, I kind of understand, you know, people's opinion on it, but really, I think Malcolm feel like people saying, "Oh, Amel's taking the cowardly way out to protect, CW and the show since it's going to have a brand new season, and he doesn't want to lose the viewership." And no, I actually watched when Amel announced that he was taking a break from social media. He was doing it the same way, say, like you or I would get away from Facebook. He kind of felt like, okay, not only did he cross a moral boundary that he felt he shouldn't have crossed, but also I think he just wants to take a break from it because I'm sure Amel, just like the rest of us guys, is, he's tired of the negativity that's going on in the world, and he's just like, I need to focus on what I need to focus on, which is, okay, working on episodes of Arrow, being with, his wife and child, and, trying to find, positive things in his life. I mean, Lord knows that's something that I've debated about with Facebook and Twitter and stuff, but I keep proactive, talking to people on Facebook and everything, guys, because that's the only way that I can really get into contact with people, number one. And number two, if I'm ever going to succeed at comics, good or bad, I kind of need to have a social media, presence. So it's like, I can understand from Amel's point of view, just from a moral perspective, okay, damned if you do, damned if you don't. And do I agree with Amel taking a break? I'm very neutral about that. I don't think that it's necessary for him to do that, but if he feels like this is a good way for him to kind of like, take a step back and really re-examine and reevaluate, his territories and what is actually important to him, whether it be socially or personally or politically, then you know what? I'm all for that. We all need that moment. We all need to, have that kind of moral compass rather than trying to play keyboard warrior like a lot of people have done. And that's, I think, the problem, Malcolm, that's becoming very evident from the baby boomers all the way to even our generation is people now have this, and I've said it once and I'll say it again, they have this sense of entitlement that is really getting very obnoxiously annoying to keep it PG. Because I have a lot of other ways that I can describe it, but I won't, just because we need to keep this a very somewhat, like T for teen rated like level for this show.
Yeah, and
But
we're
it's
running on time.
no, but I mean, yeah, it's like we're running on time. But no, I mean it gets very aggravating when people just feel like they have to put others down to make themselves feel better. And this is nothing new.
No.
It's nothing that's it's not reinventing the wheel, but it really is starting to become a very big problem of many different age groups where people feel like their entitled opinion or just entitlement in general to anything is getting in the way of good, normal, common sense. Basically, people don't have common sense anymore. And that's something that me and a lot of other people have really talked about. And it's kind of very sad and pathetic that people nowadays, Malcolm, and even you and I have talked about this, that it's just like I said, very sad and pathetic that people, don't have manners, they don't have common sense, they have no common courtesy, they have no respect for themselves or the others around them, especially their family. And it's like, look, it's okay to have an opinion, it's okay to speak your mind, as long as you do it in a way that is tactful. Like okay, give you a great example. Everybody's dogging Donald Trump mainly because he's a celebrity, but let's be honest, Trump is saying the things that some people maybe are a little bit scared or would backpedal from, the uncomfortable topics. And you know what? That's fine. If Trump feels like that is his platform to reach people, whether it be personally, socially, or politically, that's his platform. And I'm glad that he doesn't apologize for it. Now, does that mean that I'm going to vote for him? No. But I can respect the fact that the man has an opinion and he's not going to shy away from it. And I feel like, Amel with this whole thing had the same kind of platform, which is he's not going to apologize for how he feels, but he's not going to go overboard with it either.
Yeah, but
He's
see,
going to mention.
but that's a little bit the difference between Trump and Mel. You see, Trump, I have no problem with him speaking his mind. In fact, I like when he actually sticks it to the media a little bit when when they don't speak the truth. However, you see with these debates and so that the problem is not what the problem is that it's almost like you really want to vote for that guy, how he comes across. Sometimes you look at Trump, it seems like he just disrespects somebody just because for the sake of disrespecting. And I think that's what rubs people the
Um,
wrong way with Trump. I know it does for me. I get he's a self-made man, but there are times where it's like, you talk about. I think we brought something about immigrants and so it's like, but wait a minute, you're an immigrant too. Your family is in Germany. It's like,
yeah, and I love the meme that I saw on Facebook one day because now apparently Schwarzenegger is going to be the host of Celebrity Apprentice, and I love what somebody said. It's like, yeah, Trump talks about immigration and getting rid of immigrants, has his job taken by an immigrant.
and I still feel if Trump was to get elected as president, I'm sorry. I think we'll get bombed because he has so much pride that he'll just easily and just for the sake of doing probably just piss somebody off from another country and well, now we're in trouble because this fool Trump, Trump doesn't like. I bet you he doesn't like taking orders from people. He doesn't like playing ball, with others. And I think he can't be president. He can't do that. And I'm not even the most political guy, but I just know.
I'm not either. I'm not either. But let's be honest. And especially when it comes to Trump, I have to laugh because it's like this guy's a much more aggressive version of Teddy Roosevelt to me. Like that's just the way that he comes across to me. But we're not here to talk about politics. We're here to pretty much like talk about Amel. And I was just trying to bring up Trump to try to make the valid point that look, it's like Amel shouldn't have to be apologetic for his opinion. I mean, okay, yeah, he's a celebrity, he's a star, and yeah, he's got a show that has millions of viewers and a studio that pretty much could replace him, because of bad PR. And that to me is kind of really sad Hollywood wise. But it's like, I mean, the thing about Stephen Amell that I definitely can respect is the fact that, okay, yeah, he was trying to play the neutral card, Malcolm. He was trying to
Yeah,
show both sides.
exactly. That's why I
But
feel.
and it was also doubly sad when I was watching a lot of people that were from Texas that were actually even defending Amel, basically saying, it's like, look, it's like us Texans, especially the good ones, are always being, one guy was, especially the southern states are always talking about being dumb, illiterate, racist, sleeping with their cousins, etc. Like all these southern stereotypes. And there was one guy, he basically told his life story, and it was sad that, he moved from Georgia. And when he moved from Georgia, he had a thick southern accent. He had a traumatizing experience in grade school because a teacher thought that he had racistly like called a girl like a black monkey or something like that. And the teacher's just sitting there shaking him and screaming at him like what he said, and all he was doing was just like playing with other kids. And he was saying, an old like Southern euphemism, and of course, obviously, anybody who's not from the South or the Midwest, won't get that, and they'll take it the wrong way. And sad part is the guy said that he was refused a job one time because somebody didn't like Southerners, and they basically just tried to out the guy out of the interview process, even though he was the best candidate. And so, really it's one of those things to where you have to really understand that look, not all people that are southern are bad. I mean, hell, you could technically consider me quote unquote being a southerner even though I don't act like one, but I do have like southern-esque values. It's like I came from rural Oklahoma. Both sides of my family, my mother and my father, are from rural Oklahoma. I
Boomers.
still say, yeah, I still say y'all and use like a little bit of southern vernacular here and there, and I still have a tiny bit of that twang when I say some stuff, but that to me, to me, it shouldn't matter if you're from the South or not. And honestly, okay, I get it. Texas is a proud state. They're a big, heavy gun state. I get all that. But to me, being from the South should not be considered a bad thing. Oh, well, your people, you know, actually, followed slavery and stuff. And see that those are the kinds of comments, not just from, African Americans, but just from the world in general. That's kind of messed up. You can't sit there and accuse people from southern states of stereotyping when not all of them feel that way. Not every southern person is a KKK member. I'm going to tell you right now, there are people in Boston, in freaking Minnesota. It's like the KKK is not a Southern thing, guys. It's a
Exactly.
nationwide thing.
Exactly. That's like what you're saying about blaming blaming somebody from the South. Let's say somebody was born in the '80s, and you blame them. You're angry towards them when you blame them for you know the KKK or the Oklahoma bombing. That's like blaming um a 20-year-old 20-year-old Asian Japanese person for Pearl Harbor, something they had no control of and nothing to do with. That's what that's akin to. It's like,
And, but and I'll bring up something that's even relevant, Malcolm, and it's something that even you and I have sensitively talked about that even kind of makes you shake your head. And it makes, and my mother gets all fired up about it, which it does kind of irritate me a little bit, but I understand where my mother's coming from because it kind of annoys me a little bit too deep down, which is the fact of you know all these black youths, or even like people in like their 30s and 40s, you know all these black people basically looking at white people and saying, well, it's your ancestors' fault, and you owe me this and you owe me that. And to me, that's kind of not only is that rude and ignorant, but also you can't blame somebody based on their genealogy. If my ancestors were plantation owners or like slavers, etc., and so forth, okay, that's not my fault what my ancestors did, and I should not pay any dividends to the black community for that. But see, that's the problem, I think, Malcolm, is it's not even just entitlement, it's just people are trying to lick the salts of old wounds that have already been festered over. They've already been done with. And to me, that's why racism, I think, still exists in not only America but around the world, is the fact that people are letting old feuds, old wounds, old bones, if you will,
linger.
not lie. What?
I said that basically, these past events that dealt with a certain, race or a certain nationality, people are letting these things still linger and let them be the I guess the blame for the future generation of these races and nationalities that have nothing, that have probably no idea until they maybe learn it from it in school, and let them be to blame for it. They're like, well, I had nothing to do with that, but they still let it
It,
linger.
it, I mean, honestly, if somebody had an ancestor that was one of the kamikaze bombers from, Pearl Harbor, it's like I'm not going to hold that against the modern day descendant. It's not like they knew that. And if, like I said, if I found, if I was to trace my genealogy back and I found out that, oh yeah, one of my ancestors, was a slaver back during the times of slavery and the Civil War and stuff, okay, that's not something that should be held against me personally. But yeah, I think that's a big problem is people are looking for excuses to riot and pillage and cause anarchy. And that's the kind of crap, Malcolm, that really like gets on my nerves. Like, it harkens back to basically what Michael Caine basically said in The Dark Knight. Some people just want to watch the world burn, and that's kind of messed up to me. Like you're so selfish that you really just you don't want time to progress forward. You don't want progress to be made socially and economically. This is why I think we will never have world peace, is because people always want to violently debate. They always want to criticize. They want to point the finger at anybody but themselves. And that's kind of that kind of to me really shows that the human race is never going to make progress. And that's very sad. We could already have like Back to the Future S technology with hoverboards, hover boots, self-lacing shoes. Granted, I'm far-reaching here, Malcolm, but I'm just saying there should be a sense of unity, among among different people. I mean, hell, you see people that are biracial more and more, and yet everybody still holds true to that. Oh, you should date within your.
Oh no, we just lost Steve. And hey, J Flow, it's good to be back. And don't worry, Steve should be back anytime now. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Okay, well, I thought Steve would be back soon, but yeah, basically at the end of the day, return the whole Mel thing. I don't think he should have to apologize because he didn't say anything that was wrong. It's not like how some celebrities, they say something that is really probably wrong, even from their loyalists think it's really wrong. Or all right, there's Steve. Steve is back. Um,
Sorry about that, guys. Apparently, for some weird reason, it like froze on this G Plus Hangout froze on me while I was in like mid thought. But no, I mean that's why you see more biracial people more and more, and it's the whole like race traitor thing. I mean I actually found out from one of the ladies that I work with that she's half Jewish, and when her mom died, her mom's side of the family didn't even consider her a family member when her mom died. They basically just cut her off. So there are some races that do that, and it's really kind of sad. But it happens.
yeah, well, I was just going to end the whole Stephen Bell just saying that, you know, uh, I definitely can speak for Steve here because he has basically the same thought that we basically feel that it not necessarily he doesn't have to apologize because of he had an opinion. Is that he doesn't have to apologize because there was nothing wrong with his opinion, with his first post that started off everything. It's not like I said, it's not like when some celebrity just lambastes a fan of theirs, and then when everybody gets on their case, they just try to defend it with some lame excuse or something, or I didn't mean that. I was just caught up in the moment. No, that wasn't the case with Stephen Amell. No, he just made a neutral comment about the whole thing, and he got flagged for it. So for that very reason, for his neutral statement, the first post that started everything, not the whole, if you're outraged by opinion, then you're just bored. That I can understand people get a little bit, okay, you know what, that's okay, that's a little bit, but just the whole land, racially profiling, Muhammad is just as bad as profiling Texas. That comment, I don't see that. I don't feel he does have to apologize.
Look, I actually looked at the clock that the kid made, and I mean, okay, one can debate that. Yeah, it might have been conceived as a bomb, and even if it was briefcase based, I mean, okay, that that part is fine. Okay, the teachers took a precaution, they evacuated the school. My problem is the fact that, and I agree with some people, the kid, Muhammad should have known better, especially since this was like only a couple of days, even a week or two after, the celebration of 9/11. So, I mean, Muhammad should have looked at that and he should have said, okay, it's a couple of weeks after 9/11. It's like maybe I should, should think about the fact that, hey, this might upset some people. But it also kind of sparks, the debate of, okay, if this was a white kid, you know, he wouldn't have been, he wouldn't have been arrested, the way that he was. Or, oh, if it was a black kid that did this, he would have been, pepper sprayed or tased. And see, that's where I think it's kind of drawing a spark in a debate, Malcolm. It's not the fact that this kid is Muslim, it's the fact that, A, it came after 9/11. So, okay, people were celebrating that, and number two, it's the fact that this was a teenage kid. This was a kid going to school, and this was a very intelligent kid, who built this thing, built this clock from scratch. And I think that's always been and that I've always said that I feel bad for some Muslims, like the good Muslims, not the crazy ass ones,
I mean, the
but like
extreme,
the good. What?
not the extremists.
Yeah, like the extremists or the people that are with ISIS and all that stuff. But it's kind of sad that, yeah, we ever since 9/11, we don't look at Middle Easterners, the same. Essentially, the Middle Easterners now kind of became just like the blacks during the civil rights movement. Now, basically, and it's not, and it's like it's becoming ridiculous where we are racially profiling people, and even if they're not doing anything, it goes back to stuff like Trayvon Martin. It goes back to stuff like Michael Brown. It goes back to essentially the fact, essentially the number one question, Malcolm. Okay, can we truly move past the stereotypes that we have in place of people? That bigoted, those bigoted stereotypes. When we look at a Middle Easterner, what's the first thing that you think of usually racially? You usually think, okay, 9/11, um, you know, suicide bombers, et cetera and so forth, et cetera and so forth. And now you can add ISIS to that list. And so it's really becoming very sad, Malcolm, that we are looking at different races and cultures, some cultures that are actually, pretty interesting. And rather than trying to educate ourselves and rather than trying to discern the difference between a good person or a bad person, we're like, oh, it doesn't matter if this person is Muslim, but is, a good charitable person that's very intelligent, very well educated. Oh no, they're probably a member of ISIS.
Yeah,
That's the kind of crap that really like irritates me, because you can't do that. To me, morally, you should not do that. I understand it, but I don't accept it. That's my take on it. I understand where people come from with that, like the fear, the paranoia, and the phobia. But at the same time, from a humanistic standpoint, Malcolm, you have to, oh, just like a Kit Kat bar, you have to break it apart and really discern the two sides. You
yeah.
can't.
I mean, I mean, you know, before we move on to, because we've been on this topic for a while. I said before when Ian posted about it, and I put in the comment section, is that my only issue was the whole thing of him being arrested. I feel that it could have been easily avoided because like I said, he had already shown it to the teacher that he wanted to impress. And the teacher did, want him to put it away. And he did. He put it in the briefcase that he brought it in. And in his English class, that's when it beeped. And everybody, by the way, panicked. And now I feel that the English teacher, could have just asked, what's in the briefcase. And then after getting the answer, probably asked, okay, does anybody else know about it? And why I say ask that, because then the teacher that he originally showed could have been brought in for confirmation. And all that could have been avoided. But that was not the case. I feel that the whole arrest thing could have been avoided. And even when the cops did come, they could have just checked the bomb, because what they thought was a bomb, checked the briefcase. Okay, it's not a bomb, before just arresting them. And then I think checking what's in the briefcase, and then so forth and so forth. But that wasn't the case. But yeah, I know it was a Mel's decision, but I don't feel that he has to apologize for the first tweet that he made that started up all this controversy. But like something that's not causing controversy, because I don't even know, Eric Bishop was the one that said that controversy creates cash. And in a way, that does have some truth to it. But this game is not causing any controversy, but it is very popular at this moment, and it is the game Until Dawn. By the way, people, I do not have a PS4, but the whole intrigue of Until Dawn, has caused many that don't have a PS4 or just don't have the newest next gen game period, to check out these
Or haven't even
playthroughs.
bought it like myself.
Yeah, they check through these playthroughs on YouTube. And for those of you that don't know what Until Dawn is, Until Dawn is an exclusive PS4 game. Yes, it's exclusive. Um, it's an exclusive PS4 game. It's almost, when how they promoted it at first was like a slasher horror, but when you play through the game, yeah, you find out no, it starts. It's like what does TV tropes call it? It's a subversion. They make you think it's all about slasher horror. But as you start to peel the layers of the story, you come to find out no, it comes more supernatural horror. I'm telling you, it really does. It goes from playing up the slasher horror tropes to supernatural horror, just straight up supernatural horror. And
But
I was gonna say rightfully so. It's been getting good reviews. Even people that probably even know about it until they started to see the playthroughs. Because me and Chris found about when they first, advertised it, like back in, June or May, and I thought it was not going to come out until probably like October or November or even December, but it came out earlier than that. You got something to say, Steve?
no, I was gonna say, like, when I saw that game, I was like, okay, it's like a horror game, and the thing that really caught my eye with Until Dawn, and I've told people, Until Dawn is pretty much PS4's version of Heavy Rain, just with not only the choice, the fact that choice is your main adjective, but also the fact that it controls like Heavy Rain, and the fact that there are quick time events, button mashing sequences, and
Oh, shoot.
certain ways of moving the controller and utilizing the controller, etc., and so
Yeah.
forth. Like a great example is if your character is in a particular position where they're not moving. Um, they have because the PS4 controllers, those of you that don't own a PS4, the PS4 controller is being utilized kind of like the Wii U controller, where it's actually motion censored or motion activated. So you'll have a little button prompt where it'll be hold the controller completely still, and you'll have like a little vibrational thing that'll show if your controller is actually going out of alignment, and if you do, obviously you make a mistake, but You gotta sit there and hold the controller like dead still. And I rather like that. I like that the game has like this interactive feel where you are in control of every character's fate. And it's not one of those games where you're completely controlling the characters. You're moving them around, but you're not controlling their actions. You make the choice of what their actions can be, which is something that Heavy Rain really did a lot of. And and that's why I draw a lot of the parallels between it and Heavy Rain. It's like a much more advanced version of Heavy Rain to me when I was watching a lot of the playthroughs. But yeah, that's when it was first advertised, it looked like, okay, a slasher horror game. And then, yeah, when you start playing through the game, yeah, it became like supernatural horror, and it was done really well towards the end. Like they actually built up to that supernatural horror part, and then you're like, oh shoot.
Yeah, man. I mean, I didn't know about the supernatural horror element, and what. And by the way, I think that I'm trying to, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time Ian has 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 contributed to the comment section of the Stephen Malcolm Show. What's up, Ian? Trying to recall. I don't recall Ian ever being a part of the Steve Malcolm Show in the comment section. So I could, I'm not so sure. But anyway, he's here now, and that's all that matters right now. Hey, but I didn't know about the whole supernatural horror element until so Chris told me, because he watched he just wanted to see the ending. Chris just went into seeing the ending on YouTube just to see who the killer would be. Because once again, he thought that it was just going to stay the whole slasher horror theme.
And that was like the big twist or shocker, was that it's not so much a slasher as it is like, yeah, supernatural horror. Like the slasher part was like the big chunk of the game, and then towards the end, and even when I was rewatching like playthroughs from all the various YouTubers I love, like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye, and of course Wade or Lord Minion 777, and even of course you and Chris's favorite, more so Chris's, but Dashi. It's like, yeah, it's like you actually, if you pay attention to it, there are subtle signs that they were leading to supernatural horror. But if you're playing it for the first time, not watching these playthroughs, not anything, you're just playing it cold turkey, it comes out of nowhere, but in a good way, where you're like, oh shoot, it's like there is more going on here than what you actually see going on behind the scenes in the game.
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, and the thing is, like, it's not even just that the slasher horror is like takes like, I guess, like 50 to 70, maybe 45 or 50 or 55% of the story, is the fact that the slasher horror element is not even close to being the actual threat. That's what else we're like, the slasher element is not even the threat. That's not even a threat to the characters at all. It's played up as a threat, but it's not the legitimate threat. It's the supernatural element that is the threat.
And on top of that, it's like the game is all about not only choice, but it's one of those to where to where it relies on story. It's one of those games to where you want to get the full experience, or you want
All right,
to.
hold up, Steve. And by the way, people, the reason why we just keep saying supernatural, because we kind of don't want to spoil, the actual
Yeah, we're trying
supernatural
not to spoil
element.
this for you guys, but it's like it's one of these, it's one of these games, guys, where to get the full experience, or to get the best ending per se, where everybody like comes out of this alive, you have to really like find all the collectibles, the notes, and all the story elements that go with this story to be able to get like the quote unquote best ending. And even if you're not collecting the collectibles just to make sure that everybody walks out of the game alive, the collectibles aren't just, oh, I have to go through the painstaking task of getting every last one of these to make sure everybody lives, but no, that's like the side bonus. The side, that's like the side bonus. The best part of it is finding these collectibles, because as you move through the game and you find out the story of not only the location but also the supernatural horror aspects, especially towards the end of the game, you really start to go like, whoa! It's like there's like, they literally added so much detail to the supernatural horror aspect
And the
towards the end.
butterfly effect.
What?
Basically, the main, advertised thing about Until Dawn was the whole butterfly effect, that every decision, even the smallest piece of dialogue, plays a big part later on in the story.
And they really, from every gameplay footage that me and Malcolm have watched, guys, they stay very true to that. And one thing that I really was very intrigued is, okay, how do they show the consequences of that? One thing that is kind of a spoiler, but not really, is kind of more like a mechanic in the game, is that you find these totems, and they go and going with like the supernatural kind of route, or like mysticism route. You go throughout the game, you find these totems, and each one of them is a different color. Well, each of these colors represents a different aspect of your, of like your I guess you could say your action or consequence tree. So, like, say for example, you pick up a totem that has like a black lining, and black representing death, which means that you see a future premonition of a character dying. Or you pick up one that's, say, like, yellow, which is fortune, which yellow would represent fortune, which it would show a character having a unique opportunity to be able to, like, actually prevent a death, or prevent like a certain event that may lead to a death, or etc. and so forth, from happening. And when I actually looked at that, I was like, I really like that, because it makes the player kind of, if they're wanting to do the good ending where everybody lives, that makes them pay attention for when that moment that totem shows up.
Yeah, when they show those death totems, like if you was a player, you would probably have to really look closely at the scenery for you. Then you can probably tell, wait a minute, there's something about this place that I saw in the death totem that probably gives me a heads up that, okay, this is probably where that moment's coming.
And that's something that, when they not only mention the butterfly effect, but also, with this totem system, it kind of gives you an idea of where something's at from. And it could be like little subtle things, like, okay, one, that was very interesting, for example, was showing like two characters, near a ski lift. And this isn't actually in the game, but I'll use this as like an example point. Say you get like a red totem, which red, we'll say, just for the sake of this example, to give you guys a visual, red meaning that, okay, it means misfortune, which means that, something bad may happen or somebody may die. And it shows, a ski lift breaking, and, characters falling, presumably to their death. Well, those characters can still fall to their death in that scene, but if you find like certain like collectibles, or you do like, a certain thing a certain way, there's a chance that it's not just instant death, but that you would be given the opportunity to, okay, when that happens, when that rail car is falling, that one character will actually grab onto the wire and grab the person that's right next to them, and they could actually like end up, hanging there and trying to climb their way up, up onto the mountainside by this, rail wire. Like stuff like that, guys. Like, the game is very intricate with how it kind of presents that, death, like, I guess you could say that, death or survival consequence.
Or as the phrase is called in video game, press press X to die. uh, uh, all right, got Ian. Have you guys seen the whole story for MGS5? If so, what are your thoughts? No, Ian, unfortunately, I have not seen any. I have not watched any playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 5. Um,
I've seen a little bit, but only like brief snippets here and there. Like not really a whole lot of stuff.
what was your thoughts?
Yeah, I see you, cat.
And what were your thoughts on what you saw, Steve?
I won't spoil it for people, especially the people that are looking for like, especially Phantom Pain, because I've been watching a few Phantom Pain things. All I'll say is there are some familiar characters from the Metal Gear franchise, especially characters from the first one that do make an appearance that I was like, oh, I'm like, okay, this is very intriguing where they're going with this. Um, and it's certainly leading to a lot of the aspects even from the original Metal Gear that was on Nintendo. So I mean, more so, yeah, it's been Phantom Pain. I haven't actually like watched the first Metal Gear Solid 5 game. I haven't even got the chance to play all that much of it. I have, it's one of those things to where I bought it, but I haven't got the chance to play it yet, like digitally on my Xbox yet. But I will eventually at one point probably get Phantom Pain as like an extra edition if like they have it on like a good sale or something. But from what I've seen of Phantom Pain, just based on that, it's like they had a lot of they definitely play up a lot of stuff from Metal Gear Solid 3. They play up a lot of stuff that would eventually lead to the first Metal Gear Solid, the Metal Gear Solid that was on PlayStation 1 that a lot of people know, and there were some characters that you didn't even know who they were till the end, and you're like, oh shoot, they have this character made an appearance, or I'm fighting this character, etc. and so forth. And I
Yeah,
will tell you guys one of the
remember people, the Metal Gear Solid in terms of chronology is pretty out
yeah,
there.
it's not even just like it's non-existent. But I will tell you one of the characters that I saw in Phantom Pain that I just was like, whoa. Um, and it's actually become, for those that have played Phantom Pain, quite a popular character, is the character of Quiet, um, who, who essentially, just from what I've read on her, it's like she never talks, and she never talks. I mean, she can talk, but she doesn't like. She chooses not to talk, obviously, for some, coded reason. Um, she's usually like scantily clad, like wearing a bikini top and like ripped pants and stuff. And as apparently Snake is being told, she has the same abilities. Curiously, that the character the End from Metal Gear Solid 3 actually had, which she apparently has the ability of photosynthesis. Like she doesn't necessarily need food, or she can lit she can absorb sunlight and its energy through her skin and absorb a little bit of water without like a shower is okay. And like it's basically, it was said when they were describing her medical condition that basically she can take a shower, but if she was to fall in water, her body would not only take in all that excess water, but she would drown, and that salt water actually hurts her. And it's just, it was really, but
The characters of Metal Gear Solid are just something else. That's why their profiles are so long.
yeah, it's like literally, it's like weird. It's like weird with her. She's like one of those like crazy characters. And I think one of the craziest scenes was they show like the main guy that Snake is working with on like Mother Base or Outer Heaven. They show a scene where they're near a helicopter and the boss, aka Snake, is about ready to take off. And you got his buddy, who I'm presuming I think is Master Miller, walking around with his cane, and he happens to notice something. And they show the helicopter propelling, and he looks over, and I didn't catch it at first, But then when I went back and rewatched it a couple of times, I noticed it. If you look, he sees a shadow on the side of the helicopter, the front part of it, and he looks over and he sees, he kind of sees what looks like an outline, or like you see what looks like a strafing shadow briefly, and he basically just bangs his cane against the side, against the side door of the helicopter, and all of a sudden Quiet just pops up out of nowhere. She basically optic camouflaged against the side of the helicopter, and I just literally stood there and I was like, holy crap. Like she literally has she's like the Fear, in Metal Gear Solid 3, she's got that natural optic camouflage ability. And then they showed a crazy deal where she actually produced her own face camo. And it's just like, whoa, it's like she was doing crazy like bodily stuff.
Wait a minute. I think they showed the face camo in the premiere trailer or so for.
But that, and especially they show that she's got like, I jokingly call it that Ronda Rousey strength, where like literally she literally took out two dudes without barely even flinching, and they just show this one guy like trying to stop her from like cutting him with a knife, and she literally punctures a guy's tooth and basically just like busts it straight open, trying to basically like, cut his mouth, and you just got the boss like, okay, that's enough. And it led to like this, I say it looked like the knife fight that Krauser and Leon had in like RE4. Like it,
That was a great end game cutscene.
like literally the boss is, grabbing her knife, she goes to grab her knife back, they're swapping it back and forth, trying to CQC each other, and then eventually the boss just gets an upper hand. But it's just
Hey, wait,
that's
hold up. It's Ian. Scantily clad women in Japanese games are about as common as grass. That is true.
yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, but it's certainly, but I mean, certainly to me, trying to segue back onto the topic at hand. But yeah, it's, certainly from, I mean, certainly for me, from what I've seen of the Phantom Pain, it's no different from like Ground Zeroes. It's like, big open areas. The only difference is that you like get to travel from base to base now, as opposed to just like traveling to one or two areas like Ground Zeroes kind of had. So that,
yeah. I mean, like,
it,
no. Oh yeah, sorry, to cut you off. I mean, I've never been the biggest player of Metal Gear Solid. I think it's one of those examples where I've always said there's a couple of franchises in video game that I like. For some reason, I like the characters, I like the story. I just not the biggest fan. Another example of that is the Mass Effect series. I can't tell you how many times I've seen Chris play through Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3. I think I've seen him play Mass Effect 2 out of all. He plays Mass Effect 2 the most. And I love, seeing the story play. I love the characters, but I just don't play the game. So Metal Gear Solid's been one of those cases where I dig Snake like mostly everybody else does. I just don't play the games as much. But I know for sure that when whoever Chris gets a next gen, I know Chris said that he's thinking about getting a, no, not even thinking about it, for sure he's getting a PS4 that, over, I think Metal Gear Solid 5 is even for the 360. So I don't know if Chris wants to wait until he gets his PS4, or he's just gonna just get it for the 360, then probably,
because
when he gets the PS4, just buy it for the PS4 as well. I don't know, but I know for sure that if I don't go and watch playthrough on YouTube, it won't take that long for me watching Chris play it, you know. So
but of course, you got to keep in mind, Malcolm, that war has changed.
oh my god.
I'm sorry, I've been waiting to throw that snake line in there for a while.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm gonna get Kiefer Sutherland is doing the voice of Big Boss. Pretty heavy.
Yeah, it's like, it's crazy to think that that's Jack Bauer doing Snake's voice, and not once in your head like, not thinking, hey, this isn't David Hayter doing his voice, and it feels weird because, yeah, when you think of Metal Gear Solid and Solid Snake, yeah, you usually think of David Hayter, Snake voice.
What's funny is that about Jack Bauer and Kiefer Sutherland as Jack Bauer is that for some reason that's like the common thing in school when like we're like there's like this card game called Super Fight where it's basically like a debate card game. Like let's say your character is Chuck Norris and somebody pulls out Bruce Lee. Then you two got to make it, and then you got to pick with like for Chuck Norris with psychic powers, and then the other card is Bruce Lee's one the character card. Another thing is Bruce Lee with pyrokinesis. So then you have to debate which one will win. And it's funny that anytime it was Jack Bauer, my friend would tell me, "Who's Jack Bauer?" I'm like, Jack Bauer from the show 24. And then my friend like, is he good? I'm like, hold on.
Yeah, guys, like it is definitely weird if you're somebody who's played the Metal Gear games for a long while and you hear Kiefer Sutherland, you're like, you just sometimes there's that part of you that yeah, you think of David Hayter as being the voice of Snake, and you got to remember that this isn't David Hayter's Snake. This is like totally different.
Big Rick, I better go. It is lunchtime. I may come back later. All right, Rick. Well, we're about to get to the closing segment of the show, so just letting you know that it might be over. So you might have to just catch on the replay. Let me just check. What time is over? It is in Australia. It is 12:46 p.m. Still in the early days of the afternoon in Australia at this moment. So yeah, that is lunchtime. That is at the business.
Yeah, that was about ready to say because that's. I just started thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, one of my writer friends who lives all the way down in Australia. She's probably having having her lunch break at her job right now.
Oh shoot, there's a place in Australia named Christmas Island.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's pretty interesting. That really that really is. But yeah, trying to go asking, is Jack Bauer good? Is he a badass? I'm like, hell yeah, he's a badass. Like Jack Bauer is one of the top badasses in TV history. You
I
don't want
mean,
people subtle. You don't want him yelling in your face like, you killed many people. Like, oh Jesus.
I mean, Kiefer Sutherland's Jack Bauer is what would happen if Jim Gordon was a federal agent.
Hmm. Without the famous mustache.
I mean, that's always something. I love 24, but at the same time, after a while, I'm just like, okay, this all takes place in a day, and it's just like every episode's like just that doo 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 doo, and it's like after a while, and I swear every time, and I swear that should be like the opening to Roman Reigns' theme is just playing the 24 doo 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 just once as a joke.
I mean, I didn't start getting into 20. Yeah, no, that used to confuse me though. The whole concept of 24 because I didn't start getting into 24 until when Chris started to watch it on a regular basis. That was like around I say like around 2000 and cause 24 I think ended in 2010, and then they did the other series when they showing Jack on the Run. Um, that part of
Yeah,
24.
that was a TV movie, I
Yeah,
think.
that TV movie series they did. But in terms of the actual series, yeah, I didn't start watching it until Chris started watching on the replay, and I think that was like around 2008, like the final seasons. And from there, I was like, man, I really wish I got on 24 from the start. But even before that, like like a couple of years before 2008 or 2009. Yeah, that used to always like confuse me because how people just explain like, yeah, 24, you know, the it takes place in a day. I'm thinking, wait, how people would explain like, wait, what do you mean it takes place in a day? Like what do you mean by that? And then I'm thinking, okay, I know it's called 24, but this is how people were explaining. So then when I finally watched it and I see, yeah, you know, this, you know, the events, you know, the events take place between the hours of, I don't know, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock a.m. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, now it makes sense. Because people would explain it like, what do you mean? Some people, I mean, one person almost explained like as if like Groundhog's Day, like the day repeats. I'm thinking, okay, now you're just really confusing me right now. Like you're really confusing me. So then I finally sat down, watched the show. I'm like, okay, now I understand you guys are talking about. Like, could have just said every episode takes place, you know, an hour, you know. But no, no, the whole series takes place in a day. It makes like the whole series is just one. Every season is the same big day. I'm like, that's not 24 hours then. That's not 24 hours. Like, but you know, after watching 24, yeah, after watching the series, and you know, then when you know, Jack Bauer at the end of the series before they did the TV film thing, that the you know him basically becoming you know fugitive. You know, I was like, man, I really wish I watched the show, you know, before it ended. I wish I didn't. I actually jumped on it from the start. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you're probably not intrigued about a show from the jump start, and then you know you probably just sit down and watch it, and you're like, you know what, man, you know I should have watched this show from the get go if I knew it was going to be, you know, I was it's going to have this much appeal. It's going to have this much appeal to me, and that's what
You know
24
what's
does.
funny
What?
is the president was trying to make sure that everybody was in good hands. And unfortunately, Allstate was not there to protect him when he got assassinated.
Oh yeah, yeah. The actor, you know, there's always
Dennis Haysbert.
yeah. I always forget his name. Yeah, he was the president. Well, yeah, he was the first president. He was the first president of the series, and then yeah, he got assassinated. And then I believe who voiced Doc Ock in Spectacular Spider-Man, who also played, you know, in Ghostbusters 2, you know, Vigo's like assistant. I think then he took up the spot. And I love the scene. I love the scene when they told him about that. I think his security was on the take. And so he came in with the actual security. And then I think the rogue security is like, all right, Mr. President, where he wants to go. And then he's like, I want you to arrest these two right now. I was like, oh, he was just so cool about it. He wasn't like sweating like, oh, he was like, I want you two to arrest these guys right now. I'm like, oh, that's the president you want. Or you want the president like Jamie Foxx, you know, wearing Jordans.
No, or you want the president like Harrison Ford telling him to get off his damn plane.
Get off my damn. Or you want a president like Bill Pullman, who I believe is still going to be the president in the next Independence Day for. I don't know how that makes sense.
Oh man, don't remind me of his Independence Day speech. See, that used to be so cool, but now every time I watch Independence Day, I can't get past that speech because it's so freaking corny.
We're gonna survive. We're
Yeah,
gonna live on.
today will be our Independence Day, and I'm just like, man, I'm like, you sound like you're trying to let one go, and it's just not coming out.
Would you rather have Bill Pullman say it than John Laurinaitis? We're gonna
Yeah,
live on.
yeah, John Laurinaitis and People Power.
Yeah, we're gonna live on. We're gonna live on.
Yeah, who apparently is now, trying to sleep with Bella's mother.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I'm like, man, what's with now Bella being like the Bella's being like in everything of wrestling, like social circle. So like, yep,
You
breathe.
know what? That's John's fault. And then apparently I found confirmation um, from Dean Ambrose talking about when the Shield was still together. Yeah, apparently talking about how they refused to job to Cena, and that apparently, yeah, Dean Ambrose basically in a shoot interview kind of confirmed, um, that pretty much, yeah, Cena does literally bury people.
Wait, hold up. Wait, Ian, Australia's home to some hot women. Well, Ian, just don't get in heat right now.
Really? No, but I mean,
No, I know what you're talking about. I know what shoot interview you're talking about. He was talking. He was actually talking with Jericho. It was when he was on Talk is Jericho. For those of you that don't know, you can. Some people actually upload like snippets from Stone Cold's podcasts and Jericho's podcast, and just wrestling podcasts in general, and they'll post them up on YouTube. They post a certain portion of, like, if you don't want to watch, listen to the whole thing, you want to just get to one point. And yeah, I remember. Yeah, there's a Talk is Jericho where he has Dean Ambrose, and Dean Ambrose talked about how when the Shield first came in. And they were hot. For the first time in a long time, you were seeing a group of heels that within the next that not within the next day they were just taking losses or something. No, they were like, yeah, they were the people to beat. Like, okay, it made them a threat.
yeah, they were becoming baby faces.
Yeah, they were a threat, and it was like it felt refreshing that, wow, a heel group, or just a couple of heels that there's no 50-50 booking where they win a match, then lose a match, then they win a match. No, they were win, 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 win. So it made it so it was like when they finally lose, it's going to be a big deal. And when it came to Elimination Chamber, that's what Dean Ambrose was talking about. The original plan was for them to job to the team of Cena. It was Cena, Sheamus, and Ryback, or as people was calling it, the Justice League. I remember people was calling that team the Justice League. And the original plan was for them to job to basically Cena's team. And Ambrose said on Talk is Jericho that himself, Rollins, and Reigns basically argued over that decision. Basically said that, no, we're not going to lose to John. And it was not a matter of disrespect to John. It was, and I like how Ambrose said, we're still being built up. We got momentum, but if we lose to John Cena right now, okay, like I said, eventually we're going to lose. We're going to lose him eventually because because John Cena and all. But at this point, we can't lose him, because if we lose him now, then we're just like everybody. And I was like, exactly. We're just like every other up and coming heel where they have all this. Their first match against John Cena, boom, they lose. And it's like, okay, well, he's just like everybody else. He can't beat Cena, on the first try. That's why, and I'm not going to get more into, but an example of the opposite of why it was refreshing was when Kevin Owens first went against, when he beat him. That's why it was a big deal, because it's like, oh shoot, he just beat Cena and clean on his first try. Not know, oh, Cena wins the first match. In the second match, Kevin Owens wins by some fluke cheap victory, and then Cena wins the third match, even though Cena did win the third match, and I still feel that Owens should have won the United States belt, but that's another story. But that's basically what Ambrose was saying, why they did not want to lose to Cena and Elimination Chamber in February, because they debuted at Survivor Series, so they came in November. They came in the main roster in November, and they had beaten, they beaten Ryback, Bryan, and Kane at TLC. A match I recommend. That match was maybe one of the best debut matches ever. That was the Shield's debut match. And then they went on to go, they triple power bombed The Rock. They triple power bombed, Randy Orton, the Big Show, all these big names.
They took on even The Undertaker.
Yeah. Then after WrestleMania, Undertaker stayed for a while to put them over. But before that, it was like, yeah, if we lose to John Cena at this point, then yeah, we're just like everybody else. We're just built up to be fed to John Cena. That's it. And I didn't take it as Ambrose disrespecting John, because he said it was not out of disrespect. It's just the truth. We don't want to be like everybody else. We want to be special, just like how he is. And that's sometimes the problem fans have with WJ. That even JR said it. JR feels that W has not done a good job in building up people at the same or close to the same level as John Cena, for which is why it feels like John Cena is like the only legitimate star because nobody else is built or protected like he is. And look, I'm not one of those Cena. No, I'm not anti-Cena. There's a part of me that really likes Cena, but then there's part of me I can see why people don't like him in terms of his character and sometimes his lack of ability to sell. And and
Oh,
and with that in mind, and you bring up that the whole John Cena, I guess, politics thing. There's rumors for there's rumors about this is the reason for why the whole Diva Revolution thing, it took so long for it to become about the title because there's this rumor, spiraling around that basically Nikki, got wind of when she found out that I think the plan was for SummerSlam for her to drop the belt to Charlotte. She basically, quote unquote, I don't know, legitimate, but the rumor is that she basically cried about it to John, and then John, then it led to from John to Vince. And since Vince has the final say on everything WWE, not NXT, I don't think, because NXT is Triple H's baby, that, that's the reason for why, at SummerSlam, it wasn't for the belt. It was that nine-person tag match. So that's why when Nikki, retained her title in that BS way on Monday, fans were saying, thanks a lot, John. So there's this rumor that, the reason for why Nikki's reign had lasted this long is because, the rumors that John, I'm not the biggest believer in rumors, but the rumors that John Cena, who she's with, is basically politicking to keep, her, his, his, his loved one, as champ. And I'm just saying, I told Chris, if the rumor is true, and it was me, if I was John Cena, Nikki was like, because I know Nikki's voice, they're gonna have me lose the shot song. I would just look at it and say, well, you're gonna drop your belt to Charlotte. Like that's plain and simple. You're gonna lose her. That's it.
but you know what? It's funny because JR said exactly this, that he did not mind the quote unquote dusty finish on Monday, and I understand what JR meant. He's thinking, okay, if they gave Charlotte the belt on Monday, then it would defeat the purpose of the matchup at Night of Champions. So I'm hoping with fingers crossed, because okay, and I love that Stephanie put that stipulation. If Nikki was to get disqualified, if anything happened, basically if she doesn't win cleanly, quote unquote, then basically, yeah, Nikki's going to lose her belt regardless. So, JR basically put it this way. He said, Night of Champions, this may make or break, Nikki as possibly not being a paper champion. And if she drops the belt to Charlotte, okay, that's where it needs to happen. It is on pay-per-view. He goes, but if she does retain, then he said, Nikki really needs to be on her A game, and she really needs to bring something new to the table to take all those naysayers and basically prove that, hey, she's actually, a legitimate champ.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I can understand Jared because even when they said that, even they had on SmackDown when Charlotte was basically saying, I got a petition to, for the authority to push the match forward. Even I was like, okay, of course. So what if Charlotte wins because it's on the go home show? It wasn't a week before. It wasn't, you know, a week before. It was a week before Night. No, it was on the Raw, the last Raw before Night of Champions. So I'm thinking, if Charlotte wins, they're probably just gonna do an automatic rematch clause because in national wrestling, the term basically is you get a rematch because you lose. I don't care. My opinion, that's where I think of the rematch clause now. You just got a rematch because you lost your belt, not because you earned it. But so I'm thinking, okay, and I'm thinking if Nikki wins clean, okay, then what's going to happen? Okay, who's she going to face tonight? Because they did no number one contenders match just in case, for not just in case whoever wins that on Raw goes on to face, I don't know, Sasha Banks or Paige but no, they didn't do anything like that. So yeah, so it was almost like, okay, should you really have the belt, you know, should you really have the belt change hands on Raw? I give W credit because they didn't really do much build up to the big match until the night of the match. From the get-go of Raw, they was promoting the hell out of the match. They made it into a big deal. I was like, good. Make a title match seem big. Make it a big deal. So I can see your point that, yeah, with it being so close to the pay-per-view, yeah, it probably would have, I guess like lessened the impact if it was done on a Raw base, like maybe like the Goldberg Hogan route, when Goldberg won the belt on Nitro, I think a week or 2 weeks before the paper, it was like, wait, and he didn't even face Goldberg Goldberg even faced Hogan at the following pay-per-view in a rematch. He faced Mr. Perfect in like I think a 3-minute match. So it was like, okay, what was the point? But I have to kind of disagree with respectfully, because I have so much respect for JR. I will have to disagree. I do agree with him that Nikki's should bring her A game, because I don't even think she fully brought. I don't even think that was even her best performance on Raw. I don't. But if she does put on a good fight, not a champion, yeah, it better be good, because at the end of the day, she could be the longest reigning Divas champ all she wants. But my opinion, I don't think it's that important of a reign, because she's barely defended that belt. She's barely defended, and that's one thing I do not like in a championship reign, where you basically got the amount of days you have because you barely defended it. And
It's
that's
just
why
like Ambrose when he was U.S. champ. Most people didn't even know
exactly,
he was still champ.
exactly. And you know what? I told Chris this. If I ever met Ambrose, I would ask my hey, how did you feel about that reign that, basically you was just holding on to United States belt and you barely defended it. Basically they had Reigns and Rollins have most of all the defenses. And anytime you had defense, you basically retained because of disqualification. I would ask him, like, did that kind of make you feel a little bit, disappointed that, yeah, I'm gonna have a long reign, but I'm really not doing anything. I'm just holding on, like how we always joke about Devon when he was TV champ, or he's basically just collecting sweat. And around that time, Ambrose had like a major grease in his hair. So it was just collecting grease. So that's how it was with Nikki. I remember there was reports of saying, oh, she's injured, so they're just having her do non-title match. I'm thinking, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. If she's injured, why are you having her just do, as the reports out, you're just having her do non-title matches? Why are you even having her wrestle period? So it's like, wait, she's able to wrestle a non-title single match. Why
But you
can't
know
she
what's
wrestle?
funny? Somebody brought up the statistic that most of her women's title defenses have been at house shows, which I found to be even worse. I'm like,
Yeah,
so
and
you're having defenses at like non-televised shows.
exactly. And you know what? And when people, when commenters put, oh, but they're defending a house show, I'm like, but that's a given. That's a given. No disrespect to house shows, but in this time of age, house shows are not taken as big of a deal as they were, let's say, in the early '90s. When Diesel beat Bob Backlund in Madison Square Garden, or when Ric Flair lost his belt to Bret Hart for a Coliseum videotaping. They're not considered canon to what's going on TV anymore. So, like, yeah, it's quite natural for a champion to defend their belt on a house show. That's what Ambrose was doing. He was defending most defense was on house shows. But not everybody sees a house show. So it gets put into the, well, almost like we didn't see it, so it necessarily didn't really happen. Unfortunately, it gets put in that, I guess, it gets put in that category where, well, we didn't see it, so it didn't really happen, or it's a house show. All the champions defend their belts mostly on house shows, but what about on TV? You know, on pay per view, it was mostly always Nikki and Brie versus Naomi and Tamina, or the last title defense I remember Nikki having before the one with Charlotte was at Beast of the East. And if to be honest with you, before Brock Lesnar came, before he was part of the show, Beast of the East, and even if you watch Beast, and besides the Finn Balor match um and probably the Neville Jericho match, or the Brock Lesnar Kofi match. Well, no, that was just a squad. But the Finn Balor match. But if you take that out of it, Beast of the Beast was basically a house show, because that's what it originally was supposed to be, a house show. But then when Brock Lesnar the word is that Brock Lesnar was going to be in Japan during that week anyway, and then when he called when the WWE was going to be in Japan on that same weekend, to make it a tax deductible, he decided to be a part of the show, and that's what made it into a big event. But if you take the Finn Balor Owens match out of it and the Brock Lesnar hype, Beast and Beast was basically a house show. So if you look at it, it's almost like, yeah, she still kind of defended on a house show that got turned into
Same thing with the Madison Square Garden thing, where he's going to be like fighting Big Show, which I'm like, oh great, this is going to be now where like Big Show's going to job to Brock the same way that Kofi did at Beast in the East. And I was like, oh man. And I love the fact that it's like, yeah, Brock Lesnar's going to be at Madison Square Garden. He's going to be at Madison Square Garden. All of a sudden it's like, yeah, Brock Lesnar versus Big Show. I'm like, so you're going to advertise and hype up Brock's going to be there, and now all of a sudden, oh, he's going to face Big Show.
Originally, he was supposed to face Bo Dallas. The word is that he originally was supposed to face Bo after what happened, but they just
God.
Big Show.
That would have been the squash match to end all squash matches, and I can just picture it now. Oh yeah, Suplex City, bitch! All of a sudden, suplex. It's like, what happens? Bo Dallas suplex, Jello mold gut just flies. Roll him over, and his doughboy stomach just. Then it's like suplex him again. Okay, whoa, his man boobs go right into his mouth. It's like man, it's like Bo Dallas literally just Bo Dallas literally looked. He looked like those Buddhist statues that you see in Chinese restaurants with like long hippie hair. I'm just like, man, he got fat. He went to do like a signature sprint around the ring, and I'm like, stop showing him sprinting. It's like this is making me feel self-conscious. Boom, boom. I'm like, oh, thank God they were not going in slow motion. Look like a male version of Pam Anderson on Baywatch, and not in a tasteful way.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking with Nate about it. He's like, yeah, so we're going to get another Brock Lesnar Big Show match. Like, a lot of people really asking for that. And I'm thinking, is this going to be the event where we get the answer to Big Show's, you want me to retire? If I had somebody to retire me. Him screaming that out and during man, like, is this going to be the answer to that? That, yeah, Brock is going to be the one that basically puts Big Show on the shelf, because for those of you that don't know, that watch wrestling, yeah, Big Show has been subjected to, and I don't think anybody else has got this chant in all of wrestling, but the "please retire" chant, and he's been subjected to it. And my good friend Nate was probably I think he feels that he was the first witnesses of this chant was when NXT was at the Arnold Classic in Ohio, and Big Show and Ryback was there, and the crowd started chanting that. So I think Nate feels that that's probably where it started, unless it was starting at house shows, or the NXT crowd, felt like, okay, you know what, we're gonna pretty stick it to Big Show. And as you feel, Steve, is that you feel that there's probably a majority that are probably chanting it because they just feel that Big Show has nothing left to prove to them. Not it's not out of
And
disrespect.
and rightfully so. I still stick by that opinion, Malcolm, because anybody who has followed, Paul White, Big Show, or as you and I were introduced to him, the Giant in WCW, the alleged son of Andre the Giant. It's like you really look at Show's career, and it's like Show has done just about everything. He's done, I think, honestly, in my opinion, more than most big guys in wrestling have ever done. And honestly, he came in as the Giant. He did his he did his thing, and then when he came in as the Big Show, he did all this. It's like Big Show literally started. I want to say when they did that Big Show like documentary special for him, I think he was like what, in like his late 20s, early 30s when he
When
started that.
when Big Show started, when he came in as the Giant, he was really young. I think he was in his early 20s because he came in 1996. And Big Show is 43 years old at this moment. So 82 9. Yeah. He was I think 24 years old.
Okay, so yeah, that's like mid 20s pretty much. But yeah, it's like, and plus, it's like he's wrestled all the greats. He's wrestled Hogan, he's wrestled Flair, he wrestled Macho. So it's like, and he's won quite a few championships under his belt, had a few tag team reigns. He's entertained the crowd. He's been a serious heel character. He should be given a Guinness World Record for the most consecutive face heel ratio changes. But I mean honestly, Big Show's getting to that age like most wrestlers where, okay, and especially given not only his age but his condition. I mean, yeah, he may be in good shape, and that's all good and well, but there comes a point where, after a couple of years of doing something, you have to consider retiring. I mean, it's just like with Flair. It's like Flair is like in his 60s and 70s, even older than that. And it's like, I'm glad that Flair doesn't wrestle anymore.
I'm happy that Flair has finally come to term and has officially considered himself retired because Ric Flair is 66 years old.
But yeah, Malcolm, I think, yeah, is it disrespectful? Yes, but I think honestly and truly that there are fans that are saying, please retire, because honestly, I think there's a lot of fans that are like, it's like you've done everything. You've pretty much, made a cemented legacy for yourself. And it's like, honestly, it's like, don't go the route that a lot of wrestlers in your age group, start doing, which is, just continuing to wrestle or, go on the indies and etc. and so forth. But I mean, there's still some, like the Nasty Boys are still active. Freaking Scott Steiner is still active. So I think it's just the fact that, because of the fact that he, was born with giantism, I think there's a lot of fans, and especially when he had those weight problems when he was ECW champ. I mean, it's a lot of factors that you really have to look at with Show's condition, and I think a lot of fans are like, you've had your time in the sun, you've done all this. It's like, it's great that you want to put over new talent, but maybe it's just time to hang up the boots and just, call it a career. And I can't say that I blame a lot of fans, but I'm also not going to be one of those where I'm like, well, oh, you should retire just for the sake of retiring. If Show feels that he has enough left in the tank to go for a couple more years, then okay. But if he's seriously considering retiring, then he needs to go out in a spectacular fashion. And yes, guys, my cats are apparently deciding to fight each other. But I mean, it's a very fickle rope when you see not even just your favorite wrestlers, but just wrestlers that you know in general that you're like, yeah, it's like, should they retire? Should they not retire?
Well, yeah, I mean, like for instance, when when because Mark Henry, somebody told me that Mark Henry has already announced that 2016 is when he's retired, or he can make it since he started in 1996, where he can make it exactly 20 years he's been in the business. But I mean, for instance, examples of, and it's like for me, I'm like, I think you should retire. I mean, an example of that, it's like, um, um, you know, hearing Terry Funk, and now hearing that Dory Funk, who I think is in worse shape than Terry. Because when it was at the Hall of Fame, when Dory was raising his hand, he was just trembling, and because now hearing that both of them are still wrestling, especially Dory. I forgot who told Austin that Dory's still, and you just heard Austin. Dory's still wrestling. Jesus, you even heard Austin like Jesus. So that's when it's kids like, no, I get the passion, and I get the whole once a wrestler, always wrestler. But I think you see those like the negative part, and that is the reason for why why the wrestler was such a good, because it basically showcased that. And once again, I recommend, even if you're not a wrestler fan, to
I
watch
have
the wrestler.
not watched that yet, but I do want to watch that. Even though Mickey Rourke's not one of my favorite people, I want to watch it just because, yeah, as a wrestling fan, that movie intrigues me, and it's kind
So
of. But unfortunately, I don't watch very many movies, and I don't watch TV all that much anymore. But it is on my list, and I do have it on my
yeah,
Netflix thing, and I'll have to sit down tomorrow if I get the chance and actually, try to watch it among a lot of other things. But yeah, it's like
the
it's like
wrestler is a good
you
movie, and I remember Shawn Michaels at Armageddon 2008 when they were doing the whole storyline of basically when the when we had the basically the recession, the 2008 recession. Basically, WWE and basically had life reflect art, and they chose Shawn Michaels of all people, of all people, to be the only wrestler in WWE to be affected by basically the 2008 stock market crash. And basically, he became an employee of JBL, and that's how he was getting his money. And at Armageddon 2008, Shawn Michaels came out, and it was announced whether he was going to be with JBL or not. And Shawn Michaels does his best to really sell the whole story of why he needs the money and everything. And this is where I felt that even though it was part of the story, there was truth to it. Like in a way, it was almost like that part was almost like a work shoot, or he was just blurring the lines of reality. When he was like, "You think we don't hear about it? You think we don't hear about the stories of, hey, did you see HBK? He's bagging groceries at the grocery store, or hey, did you see HBK? He's limping into a gymnasium to have a match." Shawn Michaels basically talking about, yeah, the wrestlers that are past their prime, but and they're beat up in it, but it's like they can't shake off being a wrestler. That
I was reading something with like Colt Cabana and them where they were in a high school gymnasium, and no joke, they didn't even have a wrestling ring. They just had like mats, like those soft mats that you use for gymnastics, and those mats don't really impact the floor. And you had Nikolai Volkov,
oh,
actually
that
wrestling the main event with Colt Cabana. And I remember they interviewed Colt Cabana, and he said, I was really scared that I was going to hurt, Volkov considering his age. And
it,
he goes, I even at one point looked at Nikolai, and he goes, and I said, yo, I said, he said, yo, it's like, I know that we're the main event. He goes, but I gotta be honest. He goes, I don't feel comfortable working with you. And Volkov looked at him and he said, don't worry about it. He goes, I know I'm old. I'm probably past my prime. He goes, but he goes, I want to go at least for the next year or two, and then just live out the rest of my days in the Indies, making an appearance or two, which is what Dusty and King and all of them were doing before they had to finally officially retire. Which to me, yeah, it's like it's one of those things to where like you applaud that they still want to do it even in their 50s or 60s, but there's also that part of you that's like, enough is enough. You have nothing to prove. You've done everything that you possibly can do in your career. That's why when I actually saw Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express, when I saw what they look like now, I was like, oh my fucking god. It's like y'all should have been retired. It's like if you see what Ricky Morton looks like now with his blonde hair, I was like, "Oh my god, it looked like every 80s hair band the later years."
Yeah, because he still has that, 80s, 80s, rock band, hair, that, the classic,
And there were, and I mean, okay, even guys like Kamala were still wrestling, and I feel Kamala should have retired a long time ago.
and I feel bad for Kamala because now he doesn't have any legs.
Yeah, he lost his legs to diabetes, which is really sad. But at the same time, I feel happy for Kamala because they said that, yeah, he now found a passion in carpentry and he actually, handcrafts his own furniture that he sells online and sells to people and still makes appearances at shows. And, he released his autobiography, and a lot of people that have met Kamala after he lost his legs, they said, yeah, they said he's still happy and he still enjoys the fact that people come up and talk to him and ask him for old road stories and stuff. He still has that passion, but he also has very quickly adjusted to quote unquote retired life. So he's one of the few examples of people that he's like, he took a negative thing that happened to him and he turned it into a very big positive.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just one of the cases of, with me, it's like, okay, age is one thing, but it's terms of like, yeah, with Ricky Morton or or Aaron Nikolai Volkov, and you see them, or even Jimmy Snuka, when even though it was messed up, but the guy who did the review, no, not even the review, where on Wrestling, like Jimmy Snuka at WrestleMania 25, looked like a zombie from the Thriller. where
But but
where
but
it's like you see how immobile they become. It's like, wait, why are you still going? It's not like with Sting, because Sting is in his late 50s, but you couldn't tell because how great he keeps himself in
same
shape.
same thing with Goldust. Like it's like
Exactly, with Goldust in his 40s, but he worked better. I think he worked, everybody, most everybody, he worked better.
even when Sean came back.
Oh,
Yeah, even when Sean came back, it's like Sean worked better than he did in his 20s and 30s.
exactly. There is still so there's still the argument, and it's almost not. Sometimes it's not even arguable. Where was Shawn Michaels 2002 to 2010 run, was that better than when he was basically in the start of his prime, in 1995, till he got hurt. Because 1995 was when he, in a way, him and Brett became like the two workhorses. So yeah, it's like, he was he was having better matches, then than he did, I guess, yeah, you can say his prime. That's why I was almost like, I don't even think he's even out of his prime when he came back. He was at the pinnacle of his prime. But so it seems stuff like Sean and even like Sting or even Goldust.
Or even though he's technically retired, or maybe once in a blue moon like wrestles, like you and I even said it. Like it was just when that WrestleMania match came down, it's like, okay, Piper wasn't like he used to be. Snuka, yeah, was pretty much a zombie from the Thriller video, but when they got to Steamboat,
Man,
you'd have thought that Steamboat had no ring rust whatsoever. It's like, and for a guy his age, he moved with the same intent that he did at WrestleMania 3 when he wrestled Macho Man for the IC title.
exactly. And so yeah, stuff like that. It's like, okay, that's when it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe, because even when Shawn retired, I was like, you know what? If he wanted to, he could go a couple more years, but it was his decision. But see, stuff like, but then you see instances like, the couple of shows after Taker, when you started to see like the wear and tear, that's when you start to get concerned. When you start to see stuff like that, you're like, or like with King with his heart attack, and King still saying, he doesn't really want to be a comic, a full-fledged comic. He still wants to wrestle. I'm like, Jerry,
I mean, if King wants to do a match once in a very big blue moon, okay, I can take that. But like, if it's like a really special occasion, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, it's like, with stuff like that, it's like, no, it's like you need to. It's like, just stay retired. It's like, I get that a lot of old wrestlers get that itch, they want to get back into the ring, but at the same time, common sense should tell you it's like, hey, I'm not in my prime anymore. Or, hey, I've got all these medical issues.
no.
It's like maybe I should probably, let sleeping dogs lie, even though I feel like maybe I got one more match in me.
Yeah. Oh, and oh yeah, and I kind of feel bad for omitting these two. Another example of guys in their 40s, but are still a workhorse till this day, are Jericho and Kurt Angle. Especially Kurt Angle's a freaking machine. You know, he's a freaking machine. Kurt Angle, it sounds very like, is he really human? And Jericho, see, the reason why Jericho is probably going to last for a long, because Jericho is very smart with his appearances. That's why he takes those breaks. He doesn't, as he always,
And
he
even
doesn't.
that, and also he's got Fozzy. He's got
Yeah,
he's
got
not
Fozzy.
he's got Fozzy. He's got his podcast. He occasionally does movies and stuff. That's why.
He doesn't burn himself out, and that was the reason for why he left in 2005, because he felt he was burnt out. And I love what he said in his DVD, break the code, where he says, if you're burnt out, either two things are going to happen. You're either going to hurt yourself, or you're going to hurt who you're working with. And I did not want that to happen. But since we're all wrestling, and the last subject of this episode was our Night of Champions predictions. And since the first match we basically were talking about was the Divas Championship match with Charlotte going against Nikki Bella for the title, well, my prediction is pretty simple. Charlotte for the win. Even though it'll be pretty funny even though I really don't want it to happen, but I still think that idea, that person on Wrestling that came up was pretty funny, that, if Paige and Becky, really wanted to show their friendship to Charlotte, they would just come into the ring right at the bell and just attack Charlotte, because that way the belt would change hands. I'm like, and I can see it now with Nikki. No, that's not fair.
You
But my
know,
prediction is Charlotte.
but I can't remember if it was Lloyd or Nate in the wrestling corner thing. Just them talking about how, it's like, I know that she's trying to differentiate herself from her father, but let's be honest. But they said, let's be honest. Charlotte should at least, like, at Night of Champions, since this is like her first like major pay-per-view title thing, why not have her emulate her dad a little bit by doing some of, like, his cheap underhanded tactics and stuff.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like, I'm going for Charlotte all the way. And in my opinion, I don't see what would be the point of doing the Dusty finish, basically, because the Dusty finish basically teasing, the fans of the face getting the belt. I wouldn't see the point of teasing that and then not doing it at National. I wouldn't. That's why I hope, because I don't know about you, Steve, but me, along with Chris, along with Lloyd, along with Nate, we all feel and you can see the signs that an impending Paige heel turn is coming. I think the seeds have definitely been planted that it's coming, but I hope they hold off on it until Charlotte.
You know what I think though. I think what's going to happen, and somebody pointed it out. Okay, it's true. Paige has not won a match against Nikki, and I can predict it right now. I think Charlotte's going to win the belt at Night of Champions, but the stipulation is that when Paige and Becky come out, um, I I'm gonna go with the far fetched prediction. I mean, okay, I can imagine Paige turning on Charlotte, but what would be more interesting to me, 'cause especially seeing that Becky had her heart broken and she really wanted to be the one to face Nikki. What if out of jealousy, Becky and Paige both actually turn on Charlotte?
No, I don't want. I don't. I don't want Becky to turn. I'm not saying I don't. Not saying I want Paige to turn, but I mean,
Oh well,
yeah.
I mean, one can hope and think on that. Honestly, I don't either. I actually am enjoying Becky's face run.
Yeah,
Um,
because she just came off of being a heel, you know.
and plus, she's kind of starting to get over now.
But that was definitely the point of you know the whole Divas Revolution, that the main objective was to get Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha over because they were the newest to the main roster. Paige had already been there for a year at that point, so I was like, okay, yeah, okay, the new ones out of this are Sasha. Um, uh, Steve, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So yeah. Um, so I may predict that. Yeah, I predict that Charlotte's going to win. I hope by tap out. Or the natural selection, but I'm kind of looking for tap out since you had already made Nikki tap out. So you're predicting Charlotte to win, Steve?
Yes, I definitely predict Charlotte to win. I mean, it would make a lot of sense if Nikki ends up winning. It's not only going to be, BS, but I imagine that's going to be in the most like horrendously cheap way possible.
Then the the next then the next title match is for the IC belt. Kevin,
That one they did very little build up to Malcolm, but I'm actually really excited to see that because I think this match is actually going to be the true test for the big guys, IC title run so far, and I think it's also going to be a good like testing ground for Owens as well because okay, he's now, it's now not Johnny Boy Cena that he's facing, but it's like it's equal ground because these are two guys that, you know, I mean, whether, he's now lost a lot of his steam, I think I think this is a good, like, match for Owens and Ryback. I'm at least hoping it will be because, you're going in there with two guys that pretty much are still on a hot streak, quote unquote, and it's gonna and I'm very excited to see how this match is gonna play out. As far as who do I predict is gonna win it, Malcolm, I honestly don't care. I'm just hoping that it will be a halfway decent match.
I I have been predicting for a long time. I've been on record places and said that there's any heel to take the belt from Ryback, the IC belt, it's Owens. I predict Owens going to win, but the problem with me predicting that is that I still feel that if Owens does win, Ryback's reign kind of goes down as one could probably look at as him being a transitional champion that he was probably just keeping the belt warm for somebody, or he did because he didn't really do anything with it. Ryback had not gotten a chance to do anything with his reign because A, he got hurt, and then B, he was stuck with Miz, he was stuck with Miz and Big Show, and anytime he was with them, it dealt with somebody doing something and then Ryback, picking up the scraps from their work. So it's like, yeah, it doesn't really look like, it doesn't really make him come across as a real convincing champ, even though he should be. So that would be that's the only con I see with him losing the belt right away to Owens, even though I do predict Owens to win. And it would be pretty sad because Ryback, this is his first ever title reign. And you know what? I know Nate's not the biggest fan of Ryback. He's not the biggest fan of his mic work, but I actually liked when Ryback brought up the fact in that promo with Owens, where they say, yeah, I did. He actually, yeah, I did get an elevator rise to the top, and yeah, I fell flat on my face hard. I like that he admitted that. Like, yeah, you know what? I did get an elevator rise, and everybody saw that. Yeah, I landed flat on my face. I failed with my first big push. Everybody saw that. Like, I'm not gonna act like nobody saw that. But yeah, I predict Owens to win, and yeah, I'm with you. I do hope it is a good match for both because I actually enjoyed Ryback's match with Bray at what was that? That was at Payback. That was at no, it was at Payback. Yeah, at Payback. I actually enjoyed that match he had with Bray. And those were two big guys, Bray's a big guy.
And
And
speaking of Bray,
yeah, that seems like a perfect segue into the first non-title, the biggest non-title match of the night. You know, the Wyatt family or the new Wyatt family versus Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns and the mystery third man.
which apparently we still keep joking how at first WWE goofed and had Baron Corbin on there, and now they're trying to switch it around. And some people have been predicting, at least they're hoping that's not going to happen. A lot of people are saying, well, watch it be Eric Rowan that comes back, because Roman Reigns made a mention of like monsters. I'm like, honestly, I think to me, really and
Okay, yeah,
truly,
okay, yeah. No, this is a sorry to cut dead. This seems better to be a two-part prediction. Okay, it seems I know where you're going. Where we at? Your prediction of who is the third man before who's going to win. 'Cause that's what it seems like where you're going.
but yeah, it's like I mean, there was a lot of stuff, like Lloyd. I think it was like Nate who said that. Though then again, it could have been Lloyd, but either one of the two said, "Oh, I hope it's not Eric Rowan." And I looked at that, I'm like, I honestly think that Eric Rowan would be appropriate because okay, he was part of the Wyatt family, and even though he had a horrible like singles run, you know, and he was going with they were building it up to where him and Luke Harper were going to get back together at one point. Um, and wouldn't it be kind of a funny, ironic twist that Rowan, out of revenge, feeling that Harper basically abandoned him, as did Wyatt, and honestly, even if he's not being a team player, it makes sense. Rowan's going to feel like the dejected child next to Braun Strowman, so he's going to go straight for Strowman. I don't predict that it's going to actually be Eric Rowan, but if it is, that's at least the way that I kind of see that dynamic working.
Exactly. That's the only reason I see it being the only motive I see for Rowan basically turning face again because yeah, it's like yeah, I was replaced. He even wears the sheep mask that it's black. So it's like, yeah, you just replaced me. He's not his own person. Like, you just replaced me. But funny, I think I was talking with Nate. We were both laughing like, yeah, Rowan, his face turn didn't even have a motive. There, him having beef with Luke Harper didn't have a motive to it. I joked. I was like, maybe he got tired of all the time Luke Harper used to slap him, and they used to do tag movies. Luke used to always slap him. Maybe he got tired, and then him turning heel and coming back with Luke never had a motive. So it's like, at least this time, it probably could have a motive that, yeah, he feels abandoned, he feels replaced. So it's like that's something you kind of relate to. Yeah, the experience of being replaced when probably you were on the wait, but the person couldn't wait, so they just replace you. That
And then somebody said, well, okay, Jimmy Uso got taken out, so Jay's now going to join up with them, and I'm like, okay, first off, that'd be a good motive for Jay to come back and team with Reigns and Ambrose out of revenge for his brother. But at the same time, that doesn't make sense logically to me because, okay, basically, either which way, Jay is going to end up just like Jimmy was. He's just going to be ragdolled. So that defeats the purpose. And I mean, okay, obviously, WWE goofed with putting Corbin on there. Honestly, if they try to swerve people and still put Corbin on there, to me, even though Corbin, I think, still needs a hell of a lot of ring work, I would not mind seeing him and Strowman actually go at it because Corbin seems kind of like the type that he would probably hold his own against Strowman. But honestly, I think if there's somebody to take on Strowman, and this is just me, I know they're not going to do this, but it would be an awesome thing if they actually did, Malcolm. But if there's somebody that I think could team with Ambrose and Reigns, and tell me how you feel about this, even though they still are trying to build him up. But imagine if their third partner just for that night was Samoa Joe.
Whoa, that that would be interesting because Joe already has the experience to actually be on the main roster. It's not necessarily that he has to be on NXT. It's great that he is he kind of be himself, but yeah, that would be interesting. Like, yeah, you get Joe who who can choke anybody. He's like Taz. He can choke anybody no matter what.
Plus not only that, Joe, for a guy his size, he's got that Bam Bam Bigelow speed. So he not only could probably outmaneuver Strowman, but considering that, Joe is a technical and or submission specialist wrestler, yeah, he would be able to counter that chokehold of Strowman's.
Yeah, and in terms of the match, I would not see the point in the beginning of the match is mostly Strowman in the ring because the story's been it's been the matter of how can Ambrose and Reigns get past Strowman because Roman basically said it in his promo. When I went against you, Bray, at
Uh-oh.